Hey everybody. So at this point in class, I am going to separate the kids who are in person and the kids who are at home. So you should have already completed step 1 on this hyperdoc, step 2 of the hyperdoc, which was the Hanif Abdurraqib poem. Step 2 was Miss Funling coming into our class, and then step 3 is Hanif Abdurraqib poem. And then now we are on step 4, and this is your final step for today. So I'm going to walk you through exactly what you'll do for the rest of class. So activity 1 is this video, and you're already watching it, so I assume you found it. Activity 2 is identifying setting in a movie. So at the end of this video, you are going to select one of these 6 video clips and analyze it for setting. So first, let's talk a little bit about the importance of setting in a text. So setting is more than just the backdrop of a text or a movie or a poem or anything you read. It actually has a lot to do with the overall theme, actually with the overall tone that the author is trying to deliver, and then ultimately the theme or the central message that the author wants you to notice or come away with. So we've seen this several times. We're not going to spend much time here because we've worked with this a lot. But just to kind of give you an idea, the setting in this image, in this painting, definitely delivers the theme of isolation. For example, they are in a cafe. It's night. It's dark everywhere but inside the cafe. There is no window for them, for us as the viewer, to get into the cafe. We've talked about all of these things, and we have talked about how just the use of dark versus light in this image delivers the theme of isolation and alienation, loneliness. Setting is more than just the place, right? We know it's also the time period in which the story takes place and the social environment of the text. And that's really important, especially when we think about The Story of an Hour, which you just read earlier in the week. I'm going to move myself down here. So in The Story of an Hour, it takes place in the early 1900s, a time when women had no rights. The expectation of a woman was that we would get married, have children, and then tend to the home and to our husband and to our children, not work outside the home. It was actually widely believed that women were less intelligent than men. And if women did choose to work, it was because they were not married, and I guess it wasn't really a choice. They had to work. And there were limited job opportunities for women. So some of those included being a teacher, a nurse, or often a domestic servant, so kind of a maid to someone else in their house. And they were ruled by men. The man of the house was the boss, which is what makes The Story of an Hour so interesting, because we have our main character, Mrs. Mallard, who had no voting rights, no rights outside the home. Her only lifeline was to take care of Mr. Mallard. And let's consider the setting, because that's really important. This takes place in her home, which is where women were confined. When her sister Josephine comes to deliver the news that her husband has died, which is what we as the readers initially think, they deliver that news in the home, in either the kitchen or some kind of a public space like the living room. And Mrs. Mallard has that really big reaction where she's very upset initially, but then later she retires to her bedroom, which is even more of a confined space. She slouches down in a chair, she gets nice and comfortable, and then, this is where the importance of setting comes in, she looks out the window. She's in her tight, restricted, confined space, which is literally where she is, but figuratively where all women were at that time, and she looks out an open window. That window is the author's way of using setting to deliver a theme of new life, fresh air coming in, a new start. Okay, when we think about like a window open in the spring, we think of fresh air, fresh new life. And so that was Kate Chopin's way of kind of juxtaposing the small world that Mrs. Mallard was forced to live in that tiny little bedroom with the open window. Aha, an author using setting to help us understand a theme. We know that setting helps an author establish the mood. Sometimes it's raining, and that can deliver kind of a cozier, almost romantic setting. Sometimes it's raining so much that it's flooding, and that can deliver a tone of chaos. It often foreshadows events to come. So writers use things like weather, time of day to help deliver their main central message. Things that setting can do, it affects the character's actions and motivation. And so, for example, if you have like a snowstorm outside, for example, an author might use a snowstorm outside to bring a group of characters together into one cozy little space to indicate togetherness or familial relationships. That is the clever way an author would use setting to manipulate overall tone and theme. It does reveal the nature of the characters. When something within our setting occurs, we see how a character would react to that. So characterization and setting work together in that way. It often provides symbolism. Again, going back to that window as a symbol of freedom. It sets the atmosphere or the mood, and it can illustrate irony. I mean, nothing's really more ironic than in The Story of an Hour, when the woman within 1 hour learns that her husband is dead, celebrates her freedom, and then she herself dies at the end of quote unquote a joy that kills. We know that it wasn't really a joy that kills, though, right? Setting is dependent upon the historical period, the time of year, the time of day, even. Oftentimes things that take place at night, the author is trying to deliver a tone of mystery, maybe even a thrill, kind of something a little scarier. We know that authors often use flashbacks to provide insight from an earlier time period. I'm going to skip those two for the sake of time today. We can talk about those together in class. Finally, authors might use to give us some information about the emotion of a character, or even just like the different seasons of their lives. So, for example, if a story takes place in spring, one of the themes that the author might be trying to deliver is that, youth is a time of growth, okay? Because when you think of spring, you think of new life, youth. Summer often indicates a feeling of fulfillment, passion, romance, sort of like in the Sheila Mott story that we read. That was taking place on a lake in the summer. Fall indicates middle ages, just kind of like that, going over that hump of, sorry, my giant bull mastiff is nudging me over here. That just kind of going over the hump of age, right? Growing up, moving into the fall or the winter of your life. And then finally, winter, old age, things dying. Oftentimes when we read about death, dying, getting older, those poems, short stories, movies, etc., take place in the winter. Not always, but a lot of the time. So when you're reading, consider the season that the author has set for you. There's never a mistake. It's never like an author sets a text in the fall and then one day realizes, oh, wow, that was really genius of me. That was really great. No, setting is always intentional. And weather is always a signal of something larger than just the rainstorm or just the flowers growing. Often rain has a functionality. It often traps characters together or forces them apart, right? So it plays a role. There's a function there. The author didn't accidentally insert rain into a scene. It was intentional, and it moved or motivated the characters in some direction for a purpose. Often rain sets an atmosphere of mystery, murky, it's isolating. Sometimes it's cleansing. It can be transformative, restorative. Rain often symbolizes fertility. So when you're reading, be thinking about, why did the author use this setting? Why did the author choose to make this happen during a rainstorm or a snowstorm, or during the spring or the fall or the winter? Snow often indicates something that is clean, fresh. It can often be playful. You'll notice if you're seeing snow in a movie, a film, it's often during kind of a playful moment. It can deliver a tone of coziness, warmth, insulation. It's inviting. Snow often is associated with positivity, in texts and in film. And then think about fog too. When your brain is foggy or you're having like mental fog, that could deliver a feeling of confusion. This could be ethical, mental, physical hurdle due to clarity. So maybe your character is trying to, figure out a problem or an internal struggle. It wouldn't be uncommon for an author to set that text or that clip of a film in a foggy setting. And then finally, rainbow. There are lots of positive things that we think of when we think of a rainbow. We think of promise, divine promise almost, which means like something from the heavens, peace between heaven and earth, stasis between God, humanity, and nature. So rainbows are often a symbol of a connection between a different life and earth. Okay, so now going back to that hyperdoc that I mentioned earlier, you're going to select one of the clips on the right side of step 4. So I know some of the options are The Martian, Shawshank Redemption, It's a Wonderful Life, Jurassic Park. Select one, and then these questions are listed there for you. You're going to consider the setting in that clip and just kind of hash it out and dig a little bit deeper and try to kind of consider why the writer of that film or the director of that film chose that particular setting. Maybe it's a wide open meadow. What is the feeling that writer of that film was trying to deliver to you there? Maybe it's a snowstorm like in It's a Wonderful Life. Maybe it's a chaotic water spill. Why did the author choose to write in that scene in that setting? And so these are the questions you're going to answer. And then once you're finished with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. And do not fill out any more on the hyperdoc. We will work through that again toward the end of the week. Thanks, guys.